Hello, Group B, heroic and heinous. I intended to have Zoom recording today and so that I could post this for you, but I will do it this way instead. So I want to give a couple introductory comments. First of all, usually it sounds like there's still some confusion by some of the students. So again, Group B, you're not Zooming in on Monday and you are just showing up physically to class on Wednesday. Okay. So everyone is only going to be in person in class one time a week. Monday if you're Group A, Wednesday if you're Group B. Friday, I am going to be on Zoom. If you have questions or you want to talk about anything, you will have homework, but you do not need to show up synchronously on Zoom for any sort of class content. So I also wanted to remind you that it is important that you turn in things on time. Several students did not submit the first assignment on time, and this as we're getting used to things, I'm not going to incur any late penalties, but typically I do have late penalties, and that is 10% per day deduction. So just keep that in mind. And again, make sure you know which group you're in. I don't think no one showed up today in Group A who is actually in Group B. So I wanted to give a few other introductory comments, like what is philosophy, for example. Philosophy is the study of logic, knowledge, being, values. And you should be writing down some notes on this. So it's just some basic introductory comments. It addresses foundational issues such as what is knowledge, what is logic, what is existence, what is reality, what is the purpose of, and then you can put that in, right? What is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of a piece of paper? What is the purpose of a pen? So that's very basic philosophy. The Greeks spent a lot of time looking at that sort of stuff. What is of value? So ethics. And ultimately what we're going to look at is is there such a thing as good and evil? And notice I said is there. I'm not going to say what is good and evil. I'll come to that in a minute. So I want you to know that if you're going along in this unit of philosophy and you feel like your brain hurts, you're normal. It's okay. I took one philosophy class in graduate school. I had never had a philosophy class before. Never had I read philosophy. And I felt very overwhelmed. The first day I walked out of there and I thought, oh my word, I don't know anything about philosophy. And so you're in good company, because I doubt that any of you have had a philosophy course, at least Group A. No one had ever been in a philosophy course. No one had ever read any philosophy. Number two, I want you to know that you can do it and stick with it. You will understand. I don't want you to quit easily. Just because I'm saying philosophy is usually pretty challenging because it's different than what most of us have been exposed to, you can do it. Don't be overwhelmed and don't quit. If everything were easy in college, you should sue the institution because someone is paying too much for you to get an education if it were easy all the time. So, stick with it and keep up with it. I want you to break down as you're reading and expect to have to read a chapter several times and kind of break apart what's going on and so forth. So, though that's a small book, and I get it for that reason, and it's a well-written book, it's quite accessible as, I know this is backwards, I should have flipped it. It's quite accessible as philosophy goes, but if you have never had any philosophy, it's probably going to be challenging for you. So I want you to look up words you don't understand. If you come across a phrase, because it's not a textbook where it has all of these neat, bolded, and defined terms at the side, chapter summaries at the end. So you need to do the work of writing down words you don't understand, looking them up in the dictionary, in a good dictionary, not not, you know, some kind of cultural, you know, like hip dictionary out there, a good dictionary. Write out the bold words and the definitions. And some of those are very straightforward in the book, and some of them aren't. And you're going to have to do some work on that. Mark places that are confusing to you. If you don't want to mark in the book itself, that is okay. But write down the page and the paragraph number and what was confusing. So it's, if everything was confusing, you can write that down, but try to think more like, what is it that is confusing? And because you're going to have a chance on your homework to indicate these. You also can always talk to me as well. Okay, I now want to talk to you about what is this book, Whatever Happened to Good and Evil. Well, it addresses an area of philosophy called metaethics. And I'm sure that all of you are somewhat familiar with some terms that have that prefix meta in front of it, right? So metaphysics is about kind of the overall structure of the physical realm. In psychology, we talk about metacognition, and that is thinking about thinking. There are other words like metatarsals, metatarsals, meta theories. So it's like above what the word that comes after it, or it's kind of like the preceding aspect of it. So metaethics is, I'm sorry, meta philosophy. No, it is metaethics. Sorry, it's the end of the day. Getting tired here. Metaethics is looking at whether we should do ethics. And so I want to give you an explanation. Not what are the ethics. So I have this this can here, if you will. And if I tell you, so you can see here inside. So if I tell you that I'm pulling something out of this can, here it is. This is Noshki in my hand. Do you see Noshki? Do you see it? Is it that there is Noshki in my hand? And all of you should be thinking, what is she talking about, right? Because you see nothing in my hand. And that's what metaethics is. If we can't even agree that there is something here, if we can't even agree that there's something here, we can't talk about what it is. So if there's nothing here, it doesn't help for me to describe to you what Noshki is, because we don't even agree that there is a Noshki, whatever that is, right? So that is the question here. It's not what is good and evil, but is it that there is good and evil? Does it make sense to talk about good and evil? So that is the question that this book seeks to tackle. Not what is good and evil, but is it that there is such a thing? Does it make sense for us to talk about it? Now, in Moodle, there is a video. So at the top of the philosophy section, the first resource is a link to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is an excellent site that might help you get a little more information about what metaethics are. But under that is a video that is very well done. And I had a problem, I couldn't play it in class today either because of some volume issues. Anyway, play that. It's about 9 minutes. The speaker is very fast paced. But it's an interesting video that gives you an overview of metaethics. So take some notes. You might need to watch it a few times. Take some notes that helps you understand what the task is before us as we enter this unit. And I'm going to tell you, we are not going to, in this class, answer the question of what is good and what is evil, which is very interesting. We'll get into that just a tiny bit when we look at some religious frameworks, because that's where religion seeks to answer that question among some other questions, okay? But first of all, I do believe that there is good and evil, and I do have, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to talk about it. but that's not the goal of this class. I invite you to come talk to me. I'll listen well, and I'll talk to you as well. But we in this class are going to look at good and evil because I'm already assuming that you would agree with me that some things are good and evil, like people who don't have a conscience, people who are labeled as psychopaths, who do awful things like, you know, stick a knife in someone's eye. One of the characters we'll look at stuck a knife in someone's eye and didn't care. We would say that's awful, right? Like violence, inflicting suffering, especially when there's no good reason why that suffering was inflicted, is awful. We would call that evil or bad or whatever, right? So we're going to move ahead with the assumption that at least some of what we talk about, you already label good and evil or good and bad. So we're moving ahead as if it is, but I'm giving you this framework in the beginning because this book covers very important things that most of us don't think of, but we inherently function under some kind of perspective that's about good and evil. So you have homework that is due on Wednesday at 11. It's on Moodle, and it takes one paragraph out of this book. We in the class took just one of the sentences, and actually I'm going to stop this and do that with you. Have another video here.